Why do you think that the government are actually looking to cut the overall number within the civil service?
Well, I think the reason is, of course, that public spending is very high, and people are starting to get a bit grumpy about the fact that tax keeps on having to rise in order to fund all of the public spending. And also, politically, the Prime Minister is under some pressure, so he wants to look like he is, in some ways, acting on things that Conservatives are traditionally concerned about, the size of the state and so on. However, I must say, I'm not convinced that you can talk about cutting numbers of civil servants without addressing the actual tasks that they have to do. And while the government and the state is taking on ever more responsibilities and interventions, you can't do that whilst also cutting down the numbers. So this has to be more than a technocratic approach of cutting down numbers and recruitment techniques. We have to be looking at substantively what is the responsibility of the state, and can we actually get rid of some of these substantive interventions that all these civil servants are doing?
Yeah, I mean, Victoria, do you think it's fair for some civil servants, and of course the unions, as I mentioned there, arguing that Jacob Rees-Mogg, who, as you know, is the minister in charge of government efficiency, of trying to make the state function better, with his calls for them to actually get back to the office, he suggests that a recruitment freeze may well, the suggestion there may well be enough. Do you actually agree with that? Is that the way to do it? You just freeze and stick with what we've got, essentially?
Well, I'm not... So I think a recruitment freeze makes sense in some ways, because it does, if you're trying to cut numbers, it makes sense to cut down the inflows of numbers year on year. But the problem is that if you're not accompanying that with actually getting rid of poor performers, then it doesn't make much sense in terms of the overall quality of the workforce as a whole. Now, in terms of the return to work thing, I don't particularly mind whether civil servants are working hard at home or in the office, but I'm afraid productivity and output figures from departments like the Passport Office, the Court of Protection, which has been in complete gridlock trying to deal with people's power of attorney, things that are really sort of fly below the radar, but are very, very important to people's lives. And these are departments that have had huge numbers of civil servants continuing to work from home. And in fact, productivity and output has been very low and very disrupted in those departments.
So Pam from the Passport Office has been spending too much time watching Loose Women, you mean?
Well, I wouldn't remotely suggest any such lack of integrity on the part of individual civil servants, but I think we all know in our hearts that sometimes if we're not particularly engaged and interested in our work, we will do the bare minimum to get by without being actively fired. And I'm pretty sure that there are lots of civil servants who have made the most of the opportunities presented. But this doesn't mean necessarily that simply getting people back to the office is in itself enough. There needs to be lots more done to make them more efficient.